really lucky today because we're going to be going behind the scenes with the people that have made this project happen. And today we're joined by Rob and Darren from Hubken, and they're going to be talking all about how to build out an effective compliance program using Totara. And one of the best things about today's webinar is we're going to get to be able to go behind the scenes and have a quick demo of the platform as well. But we're just going to do a little bit of context at the start of this webinar, just to tell you what's going to happen in the webinar, and then just a little bit of background about the story and about Arriva and what the challenges were. And once we've gone through those challenges, we'll then take a little dive into the platform. So Rob, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide for me. Thanks very much. So just to let you know again, this webinar is being recorded, and we will put the recording in the Totara community afterwards. And if you are watching the recording, for example, and you want to ask questions, you can @tag Darren, you can @tag Rob, and ask more questions about this project as well. And for anyone moving to the next slide, Rob. So for anyone who isn't already aware of the Totara community, you can come and create a free account at totara.community. It is a professional working space for anyone working in L&D or HR, and really is to share knowledge and ideas about all things Totara. So we have a broad academy where you can learn about how to use Totara well. You can also use the forums, talk to peers, ask questions, and come to things like this, come to webinars, learn from your peers as to how they're doing things, because it may be you're working in your own organization, maybe you feel a little bit siloed or a little bit out of touch with your rest of your professional peers. And the Totara community is a great place to share ideas and connect with others. Wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, Rob. So in just a quick overview about Totara, so Totara creates talent development software, and you can learn more at totara.com if you'd like to learn more about Totara in general. And if you move to the next slide, please, Rob. So, Rob, if you wouldn't mind, as a starting point, just giving us a very quick overview as to who you are and what your role is at Arriva.
Sure, of course. So, my name is Rob Waggott. So, I'm Business Applications Team Leader here at Arriva. What does that actually mean? Well, we've got a series of applications, one of those Arriva Learning, which is the Totara platform, but there are other applications that we're responsible for. But in essence, these applications really keep the trains and buses on the road. Started off back in May 2017 as an ERP training consultant. At that particular point in time, SAP was being released into 4 of the countries that we operate in, and I was responsible for the training material, development of the training material, and also looking after the Arriva Learning Totara system at that point. That was my remit. Through that point to today, I became the product owner for Arriva Learning. Now, for my sins, I'm a team leader. So yeah, I've become a team leader, of course, of people, but a series of systems, as I've just mentioned.
Thanks.
And that's me.
Thanks a lot, Rob. And if you wouldn't mind just giving us an overview, if for anyone who doesn't know, what Arriva does in general.
Yeah, let's go on to the next slide then to answer that. So Arriva, what is it? Public transportation service. As you can see from the slide, we operate in the European sector as well, 9 countries in total. We started off in 1938. But it wasn't Arriva at that point. It was a company called Cowies, which strangely enough dealt with second-hand motorcycles. It must have done extremely well because in 1980 we acquired a bus company, and that's when we hit the UK market for the bus sector. Trains was a little bit later, like we entered the train market in 2000. And then a little bit later, 3 years later, we branched off into the European countries that you see now. As I say, bus and train services. There are also water trams as well. I think that's in either Netherlands or Italy. I need to research that a little bit, but yeah, we do have water trams. Not so many buses, not as much as buses and trains, but yeah, 4 in total actually. So yeah, that's a little bit about Arriva and what we do.
Thanks, Rob. So I think in a minute or two, we're going to really dive into some of the challenges that you had. But just as a starting point, I wondered why you decided to use Totara and also why you decided to partner with Hubken.
Well, yeah. So when I first joined Arriva, as I say, I was employed because of my training expertise for the SAP project. At the very same time, we acquired and established a relationship with the Hubken Group because we did need an LMS to host all the training material. So yeah, we went with the Hubken Group because they're really cost effective. And as time and my own personal experience, they've been fantastic in terms of the renewal packages, the support services that they offer, and they really know the stuff in regards to the Totara application. So if there's anything that I can't deal with, then I know that the answer will be always available from the support service at Hubken. We were advised that Totara was the best suited application for our business. I know there's obviously the Moodle products as well, but we knew that Totara was a better design in terms of a business opposed to an educational authority, which Moodle would be better suited.
Thanks.
So, yeah, that's how we all began.
Great, thanks a lot, Rob. And I don't know, Darren, if you wouldn't mind just giving a quick overview as to what Hubken provides and the opportunities that Hubken provide.
That's great. Yes, thank you very much, Matt. And it's actually it's great to be here with actually Rob and yourself. I'm looking forward to hearing sort of the story again. I know I helped put the original business case together, but this I think is going to go in a little bit more detail. And I'll get a chance to see what's under the hood during the presentation. So I'm really looking forward to that. As for Hubken, we're a leading UK e-learning provider. We've been around since 2004. We've really been, I think, at the forefront of e-learning since it was a thing way back when. So that's 20 years ago now. As a matter of fact, this year we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. So a huge milestone this year for the company. We began life as a Moodle supplier and an expert. And in 2015, we became a Totara partner. And in 2020, we've become a Platinum Alliance partner. And really what we do is we provide a fully hosted Totara solution encompassing the whole sort of range of Totara products. So learn, engage, perform, the whole TXP for our clients. I think for us, Rob, and Matt, it's a little bit more than just the technology. Totara is fantastic, and we really like the product and the range and features that it has. But it's also around the people that we work with and that we want to work with, people like Rob, and we truly do want to help our clients succeed in whatever e-learning project they have. So we take great care in building these sort of relationships with their clients to make sure that they get success internally with their projects. That's really front and center for what we do. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's us. If anyone has any questions or wants to reach out, wants to talk about their LMS or a compliance challenge or a use case challenge, please drop me a note in the chat. I'll also share my email so people can talk to me directly afterwards.
Thanks a lot, Darren. Okay, so Rob, what we're going to do now, let's dig into some of the challenges you faced from a compliance aspect, and then can't wait to have a little bit of a poke around the system, a bit of a demo, and learn some of the tips that you have about how to use a great compliance project.
Yeah. Do you have any questions at this point? I've noticed that there's 5 items in the chat. Are there any questions that we need to answer?
People are just saying hello. They're just letting us know who they are, where we're coming from.
That's very good.
Carry on saying hello and have a
Good stuff. Good stuff.
No difficult questions just yet, Rob.
Okay then. So a little bit about the compliance program that we have at Arriva. And again, it all really has evolved to what we see today, really. So I'll explain the end result and some of the challenges as we progress through 2017 onwards. But let's say, for example, on a new starter and I join Arriva, then what I'll receive is basically a package, a compliance package framework, if you want to call it. That framework or package will consist of a number of modules that you see. So it could be a standards business of conduct, information security, financial crime, or competing fairly, but dependent on my role would determine which package that I actually receive. So let's say, for example, I'm an administrator, then I will receive the standard business conduct and the information security modules. But if I'm, let's say, for example, a procurement manager, obviously with procurement, it's going to involve dealing with suppliers, then I would receive the financial crime. But if I'm higher in the hierarchy, then I would receive all four. So the way that we have built this, so there are 5 possible combinations dependent on your role. So I'll see one out of those 5 packages. So yeah, as I do the system demonstration, you'll see exactly how that actually works. Other challenges, remember we do operate in the European sector, so not only does these modules have to be in English, they also need to be easily translatable to our European counterparts as well. So I'll talk about how that all functions within the system. It's all very exciting stuff. So yeah, another things as well, just to ensure that we keep the competencies at a certain level. All of this is refreshed on a yearly basis. And we typically have 8 weeks to complete it based on the new starter joining date. But I'll just talk about some of the content. I mean, some of this you'll probably already be familiar with. I mean, the standards of business conduct is really just helping employees deal with day-to-day challenges in a consistent manner, how we behave with our partners, suppliers, the customers. But it really is driving the Arriva values that we have here at Arriva. Information security is all to do with GDPR. So this is, again, really making sure that all the employees look after data securely and it's used in a fair manner. Obviously, if anything goes missing in terms of data, whether that PI information, which is personal information, or whether it's confidential, big impacts in terms of legals, fines, regulatory, obviously reputational issues as well. Financial crime, as it says on the tin, is just educating all staff really on the impacts of financial crime. What is financial crime? Well, that could be anything really in terms of theft, fraud, forgery, bribery, money laundering, tax evasion. So that package deals with that. And then competing fairly really is a package that looks at ensuring that if we have competitors that are operating in the same sector as we do, that we don't undercut them by 50% on the price, therefore all the customers are going to come straight to us. So it looks at that and the various laws behind that as well. So as with any type of learning, I mean, really to sum up this slide, really, the learning has to be quite sort of straight to the point, short in terms of learning. I mean, it's fully e-learning. We don't really have blended learning for compliance training. Again, it's, as I said before, it's all specific to an individual role that joined the business. Some of the other challenges is the language. So again, I'll talk about how that works with the current setup. So this it applies to the notifications that are sent out from the system. So that would be the invitation, the completion reminders, down to the actual content itself. So how did we actually build that? The completion rate is vitally massive here at Arriva. We have quite a high standard. Minimum is 95. Glad to say that we're just over 99%, but how did we actually achieve that? So again, as I do the system demonstration and look at that, I'll show you how we were able to do that. Accessibility, obviously having a platform that everyone can access is obviously vitally important. So we've implemented things that can improve that. As soon as you receive the invitation, how do you access the content? So that is a really seamless process. So such as items such as single sign-on, Totara being a responsive site, it can be deployed to the likes of tablets, even smartphones. Everything is readjusted to dependent on the device that the content is being viewed on. Another thing which I didn't mention before was this LMS platform separation. So back in 2017, another challenge that we faced, because all our compliance content was hosted on our parent company, which was DB. You'll see that the logo bottom right hand side, although they're not our parent company anymore. But yeah, they had to basically say, or they stated that we had to use our own LMS to host the compliance training. So that was another driver why we went with Totara. So yeah, that's all about the learning challenges. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
No questions at the moment, Rob.
No.
Crystal clear so far.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so let's look at the nitty-gritty, really, the cogs, the most exciting stuff, I would say. I would say that because I am IT, but let's have a look. So first of all, let's pretend I'm a new starter. And what we'd have, let's just talk about the steps. So here's the invitation, but let's just talk about the steps that happen before this invitation is actually sent. So remember, I said that there's 5 modules that an individual could potentially have when they first join, depending on the role. So we have compliance coordinators that receive new starter information from our HR system. They basically export that into a CSV, and dependent on their job profile will determine which package they get. So all of that's captured on a CSV, and this is one of the areas that going forward I'd like to automate, but just based on the way that we operate, it's not yet possible, although I'll talk about one area of the business that has been successful in that. Anyway, so they will receive the CSV is populated, it's uploaded into the Arriva learning system, and then we take advantage of what is known as audiences, and audiences are connected to programs. So remember the 5 packages, we'd have 5 audiences, and then linked to the audiences we'll have the 5 programs. So when the system does its batch runs, it looks at the profiles that have been created. There'll be a code that represents which module, so which 5 of the modules is meant to receive, and automatically allocate that user to the program, which ignites the invitation process. Okay, I hope I've explained that as clearly as possible. If there are any doubts, then just shout out. As we can see from the invitation, it just says that you've been enrolled onto this particular course, how long it will take, and then we, as I said before, we have an 8-week time period. Although I think that actually might be 4 weeks based on there. That might have actually changed. That's actually a dynamic date, which is picked up based on the due date that I've specified against the audience. Okay, so it's not a static date, which is very valuable. I'd go ahead, click on the link. Okay, just one other thing as well that I want to mention. Now, if I was a Czech user, within the program functionality of Totara, there are new features, and this is, I think, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, 17 onwards, or was it 16, where the program notifications, you're able to build the English language, and then you're able to enter, let's say, for example, a translated Czech version underneath. That was 16 onwards or 17, I can't quite remember.
It's definitely one of those.
Okay, we can confirm a little bit later. But the benefit of that is that, you can have one program for one of the packages, and depending on where it's going in terms of which countries, you can build the translated version in one kind of coded invitation. System knows if the user is a Czech or Slovenian or Croatian user, either from the preferred languages that are specified against the user profile, or it also looks at the browser's preferred language and can pick up that information as well. So it always translates that correct text, that native language, to the end user. So they receive the invitation, they click on the link, they're then taken to our login screen, which you should now see. We get rid of this. There are two ways of authenticating the user. We have the username and password field, which, without going into too much technical detail, looks at our Azure Active Directory. So that just basically is cross-referencing anyone that's got an Arriva email, as long as the match grants them access. Or they can use the preferred one, which is the single sign-on, which is as long as they've got an Office 365 profile, and their details can be picked up there, and it's one click and access, and bish bash bosh, here we go into the course. So here we have, I've been assigned package number 1, which consists of the standards, business conduct, and information security. This is the program landing page, where you can see the due date, the date that it was signed, and obviously progress. Me being an administrator, and I am going to go into this because I do want to explain how this is all structured. I obviously can edit the program, but the typical user would go in by clicking on this like so, and they've got the front landing page of the course, highlighting the objectives, guidance, and then the e-learning itself. Once they've completed the e-learning and they get over the 80% pass rate, then this certificate will be unlocked. But to show you some other cool things with this, and specifically in terms of dealing with the language, if I'm able to, how do I move this? Here we go. We'll just move you over to the right there. Okay, so if I switch my language to, let's say, for Italian, and then you can see here we've got the text that will automatically translate to the equivalent. Okay, you'll notice that the headers are not translated, and that is technical blocker. Each field you can see there is got a character limit, and the code that drives that, we're unable to fit that in unless Matt can tell me that that's been unblocked and no longer an issue. So that's the course landing page. Let me just go back to the way that the program is set up. Let's go back like so. Ooh, I'm going to switch myself back onto English as well. There we go. It's done it automatically for me. Oh, wonderful. So let's have a look at the program details and how that is set up. Okay. Oh, yeah. So this is really the program shell. You can see how many people have been assigned to the particular program, the content. So we can see which e-learning package has been assigned to it, and the assignments. So I do want to have a look at this. So as I say, each program, so 5 in total, will have an equivalent audience. Okay. So remember, when we do that new starter upload, there'll be some code in there that says that this individual has to be a part of this audience, and thus this audience is linked to this program, and based on their enrollment date, oh yeah, it was right, so 4 weeks, they have to complete it. This is just for my testing for today's demonstration. Okay. We have a look at the notifications. Okay, so this is where we drive that completion. This is one of the reasons why we have that high completion rate. Okay, so we've got the learner invitation process. Okay, so let's have a look at that. And you can see this is where we can customize the English text and the other languages that we deploy this learning. Okay, so it's all built on there. I mean, it's initially to build this is, it's a little bit time consuming, but if you can imagine this was a manual process, we have one list for England, we've got another 9 lists for the other countries as well. So just to try and maintain that would be very time consuming in terms of manual activities. At this point, the invitation is just going to the subject, so the learner that's going to be receiving the training. So if I close that down, this to some may be a bit overkill. And this is the setup of the completion reminders. In the learner, so they will receive a total of 8 reminders to complete this. So we can just have a look at the schedule. We've got the first one, which is 7 days before the due date. Then there's another reminder 1 day after. 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. So we have really hit it hard in terms of how much reminding the users actually will receive. And of course, these will only be sent if the user hasn't actually completed the task in question. We'll notice, I think there's a question. Should we stop for the question?
I think we can come back to the question in a minute or two, but if you finish.
Okay. Another driver, again, for the high completion rate. So we've obviously got all of the reminders that are going to be issued out to the end user, but we also want to get the line manager to do their bit, really. You know, the role that they're in that position to enforce certain tasks. So not straight away, but obviously we've got 8 going out to the users. It's only after the first one that's sent to the user. If they haven't done the task, then that's when the manager will be looped into it. And again, 6 reminders will go out to the managers. Okay. So yeah, same principle as the notification, this initial notification. All the translated text is in each of these as well. So again, bit of a task to set these up, but again, pays in dividends later.
Thanks, Rob. So I'll ask you a couple of questions just on this one now, because people are curious about this setup. So Manisha's just asking, I'm not sure if I missed this, but do you need to set the notifications for all languages manually? So you're showing all the languages there. Manisha's asking, do you have to add those all in manually to start off with?
Yes, you do. Yeah. So in Totara, it may be a feature in later. Matt, maybe write this down. There isn't an automatic translation service. So what we had to do is build our original template. And then we have some very kind colleagues in the countries that we operate in that translated that text. And we then collated all that information and then manually built the notifications by inputting that translated text. There's a little bit of coding involved. It's not too bad. You don't need to have a degree in computer and anything, and Totara does a wonderful job of helping you through that process. So yeah, it is manual to begin with, but it's a one-time activity unless you need to update anything later on.
Thanks, Rob. Peter's just asking, have you considered using the Google Translate widget for content translation? And then are you creating multi-language versions of your SCORM packages as well?
Yeah, so I've used Google Translate. Let's say, for example, I got something from Italy that talked about compliance, and I put it into Google Translate. Would it be grammatically correct? I don't think it's quite there yet. I mean, I'm pretty sure that some of our counterparts get the English version, put it into Google Translate, and then finesse it and send it back. I'm pretty sure that does happen. Admittedly, and again, this is just a little bit more info about the e-learning packages. We did acquire an e-learning developer to do that. So they're not actually built in-house in Arriva. I mean, all the content is pure Arriva specific, but they did a fantastic job at creating the translated content and inserting that into the SCORM package. I will talk a little bit about how the SCORM packages has evolved throughout time. to the end result, and how we're able to just have the 5 packages that deal with all countries.
Thanks, Rob.
Hopefully that's answered that question.
Yeah, so also you have quite a lot of notifications there. I imagine that's probably more than a lot of people have set up, but you are getting like very strong rates of compliance as a result of that. Andy,
100%, yes, yeah. I mean, it's not the only mechanism that we rely on. So yeah, let me talk about that. So once we're kind of done with the program function anyway, but once the completion has obviously happened, all that data using a completion report that we've built in here is sent to a data BI dashboard, a graphical dashboard, which I will show you. That's, again, don't know if I'm going into too much technical detail. That completion data is sent from the Totara platform onto an SFTP server. And then we've got an integration that picks up that completion data and populates this data BI, which looks like this. Okay. And the way that this works, let me just move this out of the way. So here is the 99.18%. The way that this works, I mean, this dashboard is at the top of the level. So this is the overall 99.18 for the whole of the Arriva empire. But the way that Arriva works, it's divided into operating units. So if we, for example, have the UK train sector, we've got Chiltern Railways, Grand Central, UK Bus, we've got, for example, Arriva London, Southern Counties, Midlands, Yorkshire. So we have compliance champions that have access to these very same dashboards. And you can see some of the metrics that we can looking at here. So we can see that we've got the number of modules are late, which just basically means that they haven't been completed, and it's outside the 4 weeks time frame. So as a compliance champion, I need to target those individuals the quickest possible way. So I can double click on this metric here and it'll give me a list of all those individuals. So obviously it's highlighted in red, but it's the responsibility of that compliance champion to obviously drive that completion, in addition to the line managers, in addition to the constant bombardment of completion reminders. So it's a combination of technology and the human spirit, really. Okay. So any questions regarding that one at all?
Yeah, so Peter's just asking, did you say the dashboard was created with Power BI?
We've got the integration tool, which is called SnapLogic. So that's responsible for picking up the CSV file from the SFTP location, from the SFTP server. It does a little bit of transformation to make sure that the data is consistent. And then we have an application called QuickSight that is the dashboard that you can see here.
Thanks, Rob. James is asking, well, you sort of answered it there a little bit, but James is asking the similar question. Is the data upload to a server a standard feature or something that was custom built?
No, very good question, actually. So this is all utilizing, so again, hats off to Hubken here. They helped me, they basically provided the SFTP server, and then standard functionality of Totara is that you can basically say when you're producing a report that it needs to go to an external directory. So that will be configured to the SFTP directory, and then the SnapLogic pipeline obviously picks up that, but it's totally standard. There's nothing custom about that. It's just using existing technologies.
Thanks, Rob. There's another question from Andy, but that's on notifications. So I'll come back to that one later if you want to continue for now.
Yeah, okay. So some of the hints and tips then. So the multi-language, and I'm going to talk about here really the SCORM package. We were very kind of involved with the e-learning provider that develops our content. Back in time, going back 2018, 2019, and again, if you think about the 5 packages per dependent on your role and the countries that we operated in, we had 5 courses set up for each country, which had the correct e-learning combination in. That meant that it had to be 5 programs, 5 audiences. So we're at that time, going back a couple of years, there was 14 countries, so there was about 70 programs that we had to maintain, and it was just ridiculous in terms of administration, really. So we needed to really make that whole process slicker. And the way that we did that is that when we approached the e-learning content developers, we said that single SCORM, so the SCORM that was a part of the course, which is that drive the e-learning, and hopefully everyone's happy with the SCORM terminology. When the user launched the e-learning, they were prompted for the language that they preferred in, which eradicated that replication of a course for each country. I hope I explained that. Likewise with the program functionality, because we were able to build in the translated invitation text and the translated completion reminders into one program. 70 programs was reduced to 5 programs. Okay, so it's if you're operating internationally and you need to deliver compliance training to UK, your international equivalents, then if you're developing e-learning content, you make sure that SCORM is capable of dealing with the language challenges. I've talked about a little bit about the SCORM as well, but the e-learning, interactive, responsive, are all key things to keep the employees engaged. The automation I've talked about and how that's set up. I've given you a little bit of demonstration. Integrations is a massive part in reducing manual activities. So I'd like HR import to be embedded at Arriva, but the way that we operate, we don't all utilize a single HR system. We did, but for whatever reason that is not the case anymore. However, with I support another LMS, which is the Chiltern system. They have one HR system, one LMS. I have successfully managed the HR side of it. The completion data is still taken out and drives that compliance dashboard that I've just talked about. And we've also got the completion data feeding into the HR system as well, just to evidence that people have completed X, Y, Z course. Yeah, and the other thing, SCORM program, SSO, again, SCORM optimization is just touching on ensuring that it's able to deal with language barriers. The program utilization is just ensuring that you've got that set up in the best way. So again, just it's the notification side, the completion side. I kind of already mentioned that one. Single sign-on, if you haven't already, and you've got Office 365, you'll be able to utilize single sign-on for quick and accessible to the content. Okay, I think that is pretty much it. Yeah, next steps. So what I'd like personally is for me not to do anything at all in terms of manual intervention. So I've talked about this HR integration, a little bit challenging on the Arriva side, but for Chiltern Railways, we have successfully integrated the HR side. So we've got all the JML process, so the joiner, movers, leavers process, sent from the HR system into Totara, and that is working fantastically, I have to say. And then the way that I want to basically make the assignment of the compliance courses is based on job profile. So the job profile information, so if I'm in IT, I'll be classed as IT, or if I'm in accountancy, I'll be in accountancy, etc., etc., etc. That is at a consistent level where I can set up dynamic rules against the audience. So if you can imagine that a new starter flows from the HR system, it's profiles created in the LMS. The dynamic audience will look at the job profile and say, oh, yeah, it's accountancy, so therefore we need to assign number package 3. And then that's when the program will be linked to that audience and start initiating the invitations and all that good stuff. So that's what I want to do. So those are my kind of targets for the next 6 months or so.
Well, thanks so much, Rob, for showcasing what you're doing at the moment. Obviously, those notifications, I think we've talked about that before personally, but for everyone else, I think like having so many, and the fact that you normally send them to the employee, but then after a certain point, you start looping in that employee's manager as well to say, hey, this person hasn't completed their compliance training yet.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And
any questions? Any further questions at all?
So Andy Heath from the Salvation Army was asking, if people get to the point after they've got all those reminders and they still haven't completed the training, is there any next steps from there?
Yeah, so that's more of a sort of a manager-employee conversation. I mean, there are impacts if we don't meet these learning initiatives for compliance. I mean, we're at the point now where we can easily provide to the auditors that we are competent at these particular subjects. But yeah, it's more of a line manager employee conversation. Why haven't you been able to complete the training? Are there any particular barriers or anything that we need to be aware of? It's not like we're going to come down hard or anything. It's just establishing why that task hasn't been tackled and what can be done in terms of a line manager to support that employee.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Another question, which is slightly technical and may not be something you're doing at the moment, but something maybe to consider. The question coming in is really, how do you know that the people who have taken the compliance training is actually them? Do you have any biometric functions on the system? For example, like scanning your eye or something like that. I don't know if you have anything like that, or you've ever considered anything like that.
So this is it's based on the authentication method that we've got set up for the Totara application, which is pretty secure. So everyone, and I have to also put emphasis is that this training is only issued to connected users. So what do I mean by connected users? Well, anyone that joins the business and they have an Arriva email, for example, they have a device like a laptop, will be classed as a connected user. So our frontline staff, like for example, bus drivers, they won't actually receive this training. I mean, they do go through rigorous training procedures far greater than what's given to the connected users, but they don't get the compliance training. So the way that it works is that when a user clicks on that link, they're taken to the credentials. So there's two options that I explained. One is the username and password, but I'll just talk about the easy process. And then there's that button. I don't know if I'll go to it so everyone can see what I'm actually referring to. Okay, so the username and password, that cross-references our Active Directory, which stores all the the current users that are employed. That is maintained on a regular basis. So if anyone leaves, then that account will be disabled, which will stop them from going into Arriva. And then we've got this authentication button here, which again cross-references the user against their Office 365 credentials. So that's how we really enforce that the user that receives the training isn't the actual person that is completing it as well. I mean, there's nothing really to stop them from passing the credentials over to somebody else and them doing it. But that again is if we found that out, that would definitely probably lead to disciplinary actions.
Great, thanks very much, Rob. Okay, so that's all the questions that have come in for today. If you do have more questions as well, like I say, this recording will be in the Totara community. You're very welcome to ask more questions there if you're watching this recording or you're reflecting on what Rob's been talking about today. But I just wanted to say thanks so much, Rob, for giving us this demonstration and allowing us to come behind the scenes on your award-winning platform as well. So thanks very much for that.
Great, that's great. No, thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully I didn't go into too much technical detail. Just other things as well. I'm going to be presenting in a learning conference in the London Excel Centre, which is on the 17th and 18th of April. So again, really just be sure, this is kind of my pre-warm-up. I'll be showcasing what I've achieved with the Totara platform there as well.
Thanks a lot. Just some feedback for you, Rob and Darren as well. So Andy's just saying, guys, this is a brilliant demonstration. Thanks so much, Rob, for talking to us about your compliance program. I'm really impressed how you've done this for multiple languages. We've got some more feedback saying thank you so much. It's been really helpful, and thanks a lot for all the insights. So yeah, it'd be great to connect with you at Learning Technologies. So if anyone's going to Learning Technologies in the UK this year, Rob will be speaking there as well. And Darren, thanks so much for giving us an overview of Hubken as well. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say, Darren.
No, it was really enjoyable watching Robert walk us through the platform. Like I said, it was nice to see sort of this behind the scenes glimpse of the system. So yeah, really enjoyed that.
Great. So thanks both. Thanks so much. Everyone's saying thanks a lot for your time today, Rob. So yeah, like I say, if anyone does have any extra questions, feel free to post those in the community afterwards, or you can always get in touch with Hubken as well directly, and they'll be able to give you some expert advice about what they've built with Arriva here as well. So again, thanks so much, Rob, and thanks, Darren. And we'll finish the webinar for today, but thanks both of you for your time.
No problem at all.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks, guys, and thanks everyone for coming today as well.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.